there. So this is Dr. Buckley. So welcome to all of my wonderful Summer 307 students. This video is going to continue our series talking about the one-way ANOVA. And in this particular video, I'm going to show you guys how to conduct a one-way analysis of variance in SPSS. And first we're going to look at the F table, or we're going to calculate the F statistic, and then I'm going to show you how to find or how to conduct the one-way ANOVA post hoc Tukey test that we've been talking about. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to do the first example problem that was in my first video. And then in my next video, I'm going to do the practice problem that we went through. Okay, so by the end of this video, hopefully you'll be very comfortable doing a one-way analysis of variance in SPSS, and you'll be able to do your SPSS tutorial no problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. Okay, so right now I am at the opening screen for SPSS, and I am going to choose New Data Set. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on New Data Set. All right. So the very first thing you want to do whenever you are creating a data set in SPSS is you want to look at the bottom of your screen and see your two options or your two views. Okay, so first you have data view, and that's where you're going to input your values or your data. And then you have variable view. So this is where you tell SPSS what your independent variable is and what your dependent variable is. Okay? So let's just remind ourselves what the practice problem that we're doing was investigating, right? So the example we went through in my first ANOVA lecture video is we're trying to see if there's a relationship between level of education and caffeine consumption or coffee consumption. So the research question was, do high schoolers, undergraduates, and grad students differ in terms of how many cups of coffee they drink per week? Okay? So in that, based on that description, we know that we have a categorical independent variable, which is level of education, and level of education has 3 levels, okay? So we have one group of people who are in high school, one group of people who are in college, and one group of people who are in graduate school, okay? So that's our independent variable. And then we have our dependent variable, which is number of cups of coffee drank, okay? And that is a continuous variable. And not only is it a continuous variable, but those of you who reviewed my scales of measurement video will remember that it's also ratio because there's a meaningful 0 point. Because there are some very impressive people, very unlike myself, who do not drink cups of coffee. But I drink a lot of coffee. Okay. All right. So those are our variables. So let's first go ahead and enter those variables into SPSS. Okay? And I'll start with our dependent variable because that's a little bit easier, right? So we know that our dependent variable is cups of coffee. Okay? So I'm just going to click on the first row here, and under name, I'm going to put coffee. Okay? And then in the second to last column here where it says measure, my choices are going to be scale, ordinal, or nominal. And if I'm talking about a continuous or quantitative variable, I always want to choose scale. Okay? And we also want to make sure that type is numeric. Okay? The next thing we want to do is we want to give ourselves a label to remind ourselves what this variable is notating. Okay? So I'll just put cups of coffee drink per day. Okay? And that reminds us what variable we're looking at. Okay? Alrighty, so that's our dependent variable. Okay? And for our dependent variable, I'll go back to data view. We see that our variable is there. Okay? And for our dependent variable, we're just going to input the numbers that are given in the data set. Okay? But I'm going to go back to variable view because we still need to account for our independent variable. So our independent variable is education level. And SPSS, for whatever reason, doesn't like spaces, so you have to do underscore. Okay? Education level. So I'll put year in school. Okay? And now we need to tell SPSS what kind of measure it is, right? So categorical variables are going to be nominal or ordinal variables, okay? So we know that our variable is an ordinal, okay? Because there's no meaningful order, okay? And it's simply just a name. So there's no numerical component to it. Okay, so in that case, we would choose nominal, okay? And now, because there's not a true value, okay, so there's not really a quantitative component here, but SPSS needs numbers in order for things to be input. For nominal variables, we're going to go ahead and do a process known as dummy coding, okay? So when we get ready to do that, we're going to go to values, and we're going to click these ellipses here, these three little dots, okay? And we're going to indicate each level of our independent variable with an arbitrary number, okay? So let's just choose 1 and have that 1 stand in for high schoolers. Okay, and then we'll choose 2 and have that number stand in for undergrads. Okay, and then we'll choose 3 and have that stand in for grad students. Okay, and we're going to click add, and then we're going to click OK. Okay, so now we are done in our variable view, and we can turn our attention to our data. Okay, so now we just need to find our data set in my PowerPoint. Okay, so I'm going to pull it up right now on my iPad. Okay, so our values, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in each group. So our values are 2, 3, 0, 1, 4. So I'm going to input 2, 3, 0, 1, 4. Okay, and I'm going to tell SPSS which level of education this is, and all I have to do is input the number. Okay, so I input a 1, press enter, 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 input a 1, press enter. And SPSS already knows, because we set those values, that a 1 means a high schooler. Now, if you don't see that number 1 changing to the appropriate label, you're going to want to go to View and make sure that Value Labels is checked. Okay, so that tells SPSS to plug in your labels for that value, that number. Okay, so we've got our first group. So I'm looking at my data set here. Okay, so now I have the undergrads, and their cups of coffee are 50243. 50243. Okay, and now I need to tell SPSS that they're undergrads. So again, I'm going to input a 2. Okay, whoops, and press enter. Whoops, there we go. Okay, in our last group, our grad students, we have 75653. 7, 5, 6, 5, 3. Okay, and now we're going to input graduates or grad students by inputting a 3 there. And now we have our data set. Okay, so it's really not difficult, guys. And then we're ready to do our analysis. Okay, so we're going to go up here to Analyze. We're going to go to Compare Means. And we're going to go to One-Way ANOVA. Okay, and the first thing we're going to tell SPSS is we're going to tell SPSS what our dependent variable is, and that's going to go under Dependent List. And then we're going to tell SPSS what our independent variable is, which is going to be known as our factor. Okay, so we put cups of coffee in the dependent list and year of education, okay, in the factor. Okay, but we're not quite done yet. We've got to have some more information. Okay, so we're going to go to Options, and we're going to click Descriptive. Okay, and now we're going to click on Post Hoc, and that's where we're going to select the Tukey test. Okay, remember, we don't want Bonferroni and we don't want LSD. No LSD. Okay, so we're going to select the Tukey test. Okay, and we are going to specify the level, the alpha level of 0.05. Okay, then we're going to click Continue. Okay, and then we're going to hit OK. All right, so now we have all the tables that we need. We've got our handy dandy descriptives table that gives us the means for our high schoolers, our undergrads, and our grad students, okay, as well as the standard deviation for each, which we'll need for our APA style summary, okay. We have our ANOVA table, okay. And we've got those familiar sum of squares values. We've got 27.73, 33.60, 61.33. And we've got 2, 12, and 14, which are our degrees of freedom. And our alpha level of 4.95. And we know our p-value is 0.027, which means it's less than 0.05, so we can reject the null hypothesis and assume there's a significant difference. And then we go down here and we look at these comparisons, right? So we know that high schoolers, okay, the cups of coffee consumed by high schoolers compared to undergraduates was not a significant difference because the significance value, or p-value, is much bigger than 0.05. But if we look at the difference in coffee consumption between high schoolers and grad students, we see that our p-value is 0.027. So that is significant, okay? But no difference between high schoolers and undergrads, and no difference between um, grad students and undergrads either. That's also not significant. So the only significant difference is between high schoolers and undergrads, which makes sense if we look at the means, right? So the mean of cups of coffee consumed by high schoolers is 2, whereas grad students consume about 5 cups of coffee, compared to undergrads who drink not even quite 3 cups. Okay, so it makes sense that that would be our only significant difference. Okay, um, so hopefully this made sense. Certainly you guys can contact me if you have any questions, and I will also do a video showing you how to set up your SPSS for the practice problem as well. So I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in my next video.